In this episode, I sit down with Tim Kister, someone who I've come to really respect for the way that he thinks about business, growth, and long-term sustainability in real estate. Tim brings a practical, no-nonsense perspective that's rooted in real experience, not theory. What stood out to me about Tim is how intentional he is about building a business that actually works, not just produces transactions, but creates stability, leverage, and the optionality over time. He understands the difference between being busy and being effective, and he's thoughtful about where the effort really belongs. In our conversation, we talk about the realities of growth, the mistakes agents make as they scale, and the importance of systems, consistency, and discipline. We also dig into mindset, decision-making, and what it takes to keep moving forward when the business gets more complex instead of easier. This episode is a grounded, honest conversation for agents and business owners who are serious about improving how they operate, and for those who want to build something that lasts beyond the next deal. I think you'll find Tim's perspective refreshing and useful. Let's get into it. Hi, everybody. This is another episode of Going For It with Becker. Today, I have a special guest, Tim Kister. I am just meeting you now for the first time, but Tim's been a partner of Fusion for, I believe, almost a year and a half. Thanks for being here, Tim.
Thanks, James. I appreciate it. Flattered to be here.
So why don't we start off a little bit about with you sharing who you are as a person and a little bit about your personal background, where you live, and all those types of things.
Well, I'm a grandfather now 3 times over, which is hard to imagine. I've gotten to that age already. I'm in St. Louis metro area, although I don't claim St. Louis itself. I'm a couple counties out. I live on some property out in a rural county. Raised my family in the suburbs, and my wife and I have been married for 36 years this June, and have 2 grown daughters, a couple great sons-in-law, and my dog Walter, who follows me everywhere. He's a full-blood English black lab, and just about as lazy as they come, and good for nothing but a good cuddle. And my background, a lot of people ask me, what did I do before real estate? And to be quite honest with you, I tell them everything, because my poor wife was long suffering, and she was really the backbone of our marriage for the better part of 25 years, because I did everything. I would tell you, no kidding, I think I've had probably, before I got really going in real estate heavy in about 2012, 2014, I probably had 28 or 30 different jobs. I kept jumping from one thing to the next, one thing to the next.
Why do you think you jumped so much from different jobs?
Well, I'll tell you, I was bored with everything I did. I had a real issue, I think, with being treated a certain way by somebody's mood of the day. What I found out over time is that I work well with others, just not for others. So I realized that it's best for me to try to do something independent. I always kept food on the table. There was never, ever a period in my life where I didn't have a job, or 2 or 3 even. But once I got settled into the real estate, it really changed things. I was working at an Italian meat market, a butcher shop, for a long time, because the brothers who owned it knew that I had potential to be a real estate agent, because one of them's wife was a realtor. They gave me the flexibility with that particular job to be able to come and go as I needed based on my real estate needs, as long as they were slow in the store. And because of them, I was able to really focus on my real estate. And they believed in me. They gave me the shot that I needed. And I really focused. And once my business took off, they kind of were like mother birds and pushed me out of the nest, because they knew I could do it. And it was either sink or swim. And I decided to swim. So one day when I was working at this butcher shop, I was really down. I wasn't making any money. My broker was taking a huge cut of my commission. I just really feeling sorry for myself, and I pretended I was sick, and it was a rainy, cold day, and they let me go home. And I remember laying on the couch in my living room and just tears coming out of my eyes because I knew I had to do something or I was going to have to get out of the business, and I didn't want to. So, I was crying, and all of a sudden, something in my head just told me, get up, quit feeling sorry for yourself, and do something about it. And the crazy thing is that I knew exactly what to do. So I remember got up, I freshened up my face, and I went over to a guy who owned a brokerage, and the rest is history. He really helped me get through a lot of things. He was super instrumental in helping me break down elephants into bite-sized pieces. I was able to really figure everything out and break it down to where it was so manageable that it was almost ridiculously how simple it had become.
Yeah, that's really interesting because that's what I really feel like we do with all the systems and processes that we build here. It's really building it, breaking it down into really small bite-sized pieces because, if you set up a system that says go to A to F to M to T to Z, all that space in between, people get lost. And that's how most real estate training is. They just kind of give you surface level stuff. And you really need every single step of the way. I was just in another one of these conversations that I was explaining when I first started in real estate. I watched an hour of video and then went out knocking on doors and following the Mike Ferry system. And third door I knocked on, the woman said, "Yes, I'm moving." And I didn't know what to say. I mean, I was absolutely stunned. I didn't expect anybody would say that they were moving. I was just going to go through and cold call and have a day where nothing happened. And I completely froze, completely embarrassed, and walked away and never went back. But I needed to learn, okay, so when someone says yes, they're doing it, okay, how do I set an appointment? How do I get to a kitchen table? How do I develop value? How do I get the contract signed? How do I then deliver that value? And all of these things, and there's much more in between. There's a lot to learn in real estate, and I think this is one of the reasons why so many people are unsuccessful in it. And so you had a mentor that really helped you. Tell me a little bit more about that mentor
Well, so
experience.
I had worked for my first brokerage. I got my license in 2005, and I started there, and it was 2010 now after the '08 thing. I worked a full-time job and I was a secondary at real estate, doing it part-time. Um, at the time, I think from 2005 to 2010, maybe I did four, five, six deals a year, something like that. And within about, oh, maybe 2 months of being with this other broker, I kind of had a freak out moment. I looked at my desk and I realized I had 12 or 13 active files between buyers and listings, and I never had that kind of volume before. And I said, Doug, I need some help. And he says, well, what do you need help with? I said, I don't know. I said, I'm overwhelmed. I've never had this many deals going at one time. He says, well, just put everything you need help with on my desk and I'll go through it and I'll help you whatever I can. So we wound up going home for the night, and it just caught me. I just said, there's got to be something about this. So I remember I grabbed a six-pack of Bud Light and I went to the office after hours and I got each one of my files in a scrap paper. And I wrote down on every file, well, this doesn't have to be done for 10 days. This is 25 days. This is 5 days. And once I broke it down and I wrote it out on a little piece of paper, I realized how really simple it was because you've got all this time. And I had this convoluted notion in my mind that I was so busy that I didn't know where to go. But what I was doing is I was doing a lot of red light activity, things that don't really matter, instead of focusing and really spending the forced time or scheduled time focusing on what I was supposed to do. And once that became clear to me, I've just had a great ability to break things down. It's kind of like what you were saying about what fusion does. I have this saying that I work really hard to build a bridge to the easy button,
Yep.
for my clients. It's
Yep.
kind of like what you've done. You've built this huge bridge, but it's taken a lot of work and a lot of construction time for you to build that bridge. But Now that you've got it, everybody else can walk across it and kind of push that easy button a little bit.
Right. Yeah, so that's one of our main fundamentals is that, and I'm sure that our partnership executives have gone through this with you, but for me, one of the key things for a real estate agent or a small business owner to be really successful is they have to function like the CEO of their business. And if you're the CEO of your business, you have to allocate resources. So, for example, if you're the CEO of General Motors, you're going to have factories, you're going to have parts, you're going to have cash, you're going to have human resources. And you've got to figure out how to put all of those things in a way and invest those things in a way that produces the highest return possible from those assets on an annual basis. And for real estate agents, what are the assets that they have? Well, it's primarily their energy, their focus, and their time. But most agents, if you talk to them, they would say that they were so busy last week, but they couldn't tell you what they did. And it's almost all reactionary. It's not proactive. And so for me, if a real estate agent can really understand and purposely allocate their time and their energy in those things that produce the highest ROI, their business will soar. And so what are those things that produce the highest ROI? It's not looking through MLS, for sure. It's not building out a flyer, for sure. It's being in front of people. It's talking to people. It's serving people. And it's creating relationships. Those are the things that make the money. And if someone can go from doing probably an hour of that a day, if that, to 4 or 5 hours a day doing that, their business could quadruple over a period of time. But it's something that has to be done very deliberately. And it sounds like you've come to that same realization for yourself.
I have. I got to know Michael Mayer, the author of Seven Levels of Communication, turning referrals into relationships into referrals, and I worked with him very closely for a long time. In fact, he helped me become a certified referral trainer with him, trying to build referral based businesses, and you know, there it really is fundamental. And I hate to say this because everybody hears this all the time. Pick up the phone. Uh, you know, that's the structure of my day. But through his systems, and I tweaked it a lot myself, as he always encourages people to do. I was able to scrub my database down in a three-step process, and then what really made it effective for me was I was able to grade my database. For example, an A plus client would be somebody that's used me 2 or more times, and an A would be somebody one, and an A minus somebody that said they would and just had. Well, all those people have value, but not everybody has the same value to my business. So when I learned how to grade them and I put them into my calendar to set up my communication plan, I would obviously take advantage of the low hanging fruit more, which is the people, my A plus clients, right? And I would just communicate with them slightly more often or in different modalities than I would the A's or say the A minuses. And once I got that, that became such a simple communication plan. In my calendar, I have maybe 5 to 6, maybe 7 people a day scheduled in my calendar on recurring events. So, say, James, you're an A plus, I might communicate with you every first Monday of every month, right? But if let's say you're my hairstylist and said, well, I'd refer, I might only follow up with you every 3 months. But I keep the relationship deep because these are people I genuinely care about. I mean, truly care about. And I think that whether you're in sales or whatever arena you are, if you don't truly have a heart for what you're doing and the people that trust you with such a big thing in their life, then you've probably chosen the wrong career. I think you've really got to really get in there and really truly care about people. There's been times in my career, very recently, where I've waived my commission completely for someone because they were in a really rough spot. But That's just what you got to do. You got to take care of people.
Yep, you got to take care of people. Let's talk a little bit about this A, B, and C thing. For me, and this was my viewpoint. Brian Buffini talked about grading your sphere of influence, different levels. I believe Joe Stump also did that. And what I found, and again, this is just trying to simplify things as we move forward. The more people I have in my sphere of influence that are true sphere of influence. They're not leads. They're not people I met at open houses. Like they're somehow connected to me through somebody else or whatever the case may be. They go to the church that maybe I go to, or they play tennis at the tennis club that I play at. But there's some interactions that are going. The larger that SOI is, the better. What my struggle was is I would try and grade, okay, who's an A? What's a B? What's a C? And what I found is I would really struggle on making a decision on who was what. And then I made the decisions, and it turned out that the people I thought were A's were actually C's, and the people I thought were C's were actually A's. And so I came to the conclusion myself that if I'm going to put somebody in my sphere of influence, I'm just going to treat them the same and go all out and stack the deck. And this is why we have this Progressive Insurance or Geico insurance style type of marketing, so that we're hitting them on a regular basis and then trying to get through that database at least a couple times a year with a reach out, a telephone call. And it doesn't ever have to be about business. And that's the other thing for us. What I find is that when I'm following up with people, back when I was selling real estate, because they were getting so much stuff from me, I never had to bring up real estate. They brought up real estate. I could just call and say, hey, I know, your son was playing in soccer. I just wondered, how was he doing this year? So I could be more personable. And then they'd say, hey, I'm getting your stuff, and go, yeah. Do you have any questions on the real estate market? Anything coming up that I can help you with? No. Or yeah, I do, but it's going to be spring. Call me back then. No problem. Happy to do it. And so those types of conversations were going. But I've moved away from the ABC type of process because it takes a load off of trying to decide who the A's and B's and C's are, and then just put together a package that works really strongly for everybody that's in that list. What's your thoughts on that? Do you disagree with that, or?
Well, no, I think that there's probably a good blend between the two. It's for example, I consider what's in my calendar, like my graded contacts and who to contact and when. That's kind of like the non-negotiables that you have to do every day, and that's in my calendar. But that might only take 45 minutes. It might only take an hour to call those 5, 6, 7, 10 people. Well, then the rest of the day is your supplement, right? And this is where I think this is one of just as important as your structured part of your day. Uh, Brian Tracy talks a lot about being distraction free in Menlo Park, where Einstein did a lot of his think tank stuff, and just being alone, because that's where ingenuity begins, right? When your mind is wandering around, you're always thinking about your business. And eventually you're going to think about somebody that you haven't talked to in a while, right? Well, that becomes another phone call. That becomes another handwritten note. That becomes another donation to their favorite charity, or a lunch out at their favorite restaurant, or sending them their favorite candy to their door. It becomes all of those. One of my best coaches I ever had, a guy named Tom Kane. He was referred to me from Michael Mayer back in 2014, and he had been the top 1% of real estate agents in the state of Illinois. He's out of Champaign. He's down in Florida now, down your way now. He just basically explained it to me like you just got to love everybody and take good care of people. But he also told me I was extremely disrespectful with my time blocking, but that if I said I was going to do something in a day, I'd get it done, and I did. But yeah, there's definitely a blend with that, because even though you're doing your scheduled calls, you'll find out in your free time or your white space the rest of the day, when you're doing the extras, that you'll contact more people than you do. My PE, Kevin Kuntz, and I were tracking just how many calls I was making for about 3 or 4 weeks. And I was making 400 calls a week, business related. Now, that's not everybody being a client, it's different amounts of business calls, but the amount of clients I was calling, texting, emailing, and stuff was, pretty considerable.
Yeah, it's producing good business for you, and you're earning income at a physician's, doctor's level, and that's not bad for a guy that had 30 jobs before he became a real estate agent. My name is James Becker.
James Becker.
I am the founder and CEO of Fusion Growth Partners. I have built from scratch one of the largest mega organizations or teams in the country. We currently have close to 850 top real estate agents that work and partner with my organization. Last year, our agents sold over $7 billion in real estate, producing well over $200 million in gross commissions earned. Hope you enjoy what we're going to share. I want to just kind of comment on something that you shared is talking about loving on people. In our business plan, I actually have a whole section dedicated to love is actually what makes the business grow. You have to love on your clients. You have to love what you're doing. You have to demonstrate love to your clients. And when people can see that and feel that versus just going out and closing people, it is something that really compounds the positive results over a period of time. And the thing that's hard for a lot of real estate agents is they want to put a quarter in the machine and they want to get 2 quarters out immediately, and things don't work that way. It takes time to get stuff to go. My grandfather ran a ranch in Northern California. It was peaches and plums, and a peach orchard will produce just an amazing amount of fruit, but it doesn't produce for several years before it gets there. The trees have to get big enough to have the fruit, and you got to plant, and you got to water, and you got to till. But if you have that patience in between, it can really produce amazing results versus, and I look at business kind of the same way. If you look at the cultures that cultivated, where they planted and they grew, those are the ones that move forward faster in being able to invent things and to create societies that flourished versus the hunter-gatherers that were always moving and were more hand to mouth. And I see a lot of real estate agents being hunter-gatherers, trying to just find something to kill to eat today versus planting and tilling and building something that can produce for years and years. And that's what I see you're doing with your business. So let's talk a little bit about where you are right now, where you want to go, and what do you think are your greatest impediments to getting to the next bridge or the bigger bridge that you want to be at?
So where I am now, I was up. Well, so 2025 was my first full year with Fusion. Before that, I was at a real glass ceiling. I mean, year after year after year, I was doing maybe 7.5 million on average. And this past year, I did 11.7, which was like 54% up in volume and 59%
And you're just
up in
getting going
sold.
with us too.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't see where it's going to end. I mean, it's just going to keep going. But I think my biggest impediment is my frustration with anything to do with tech. I am the absolute most naive, ignorant person with terminology, what things do. And I have real struggles. And sometimes I have struggles within Fusion with that, trying to speak to someone who's so affluent in that world that they speak their jargon, or they're talking from their genius to somebody who's really needs it dumbed down quite a bit. My PE and my vice president Jen,
Yeah.
you laugh because
Yeah.
I think maybe at one point we're like that. Is that so?
Yeah.
But
I
I really,
I sometimes tell my staff, please explain this as if I'm a Labrador dog, so I can understand it, or
oh
a
yeah,
golden retriever, and
yeah, and so those are the things that I leverage. But ultimately, there's some things that I have to do, and that's my biggest impediment. It frustrates me so bad that, very often as human beings, our course of action sometimes becomes inaction. And, that's that. I think that's my biggest struggle right now. And I'm working through that. I've got a fellow on my team named Jose. I think he's out of California, and he's been a really good guy to kind of walk me through. He's very gentle and understanding and and kind
that's good. Well, to
and
keep
patient.
growing the business, one of the things that we need to do is make sure that we're growing your sphere of influence and a true sphere of influence. We have too many people who put open house leads in their sphere of influence, or people
Yeah.
that they met at one time where people won't remember you. And to me, you have to go a little bit deeper to get them to a level where they're going to remember you, or that there's some type of association. And people get capped out with that, but we want to really make sure that we're growing it. I don't know if you were at my last meeting where I went through the business development associate program. Were you at that meeting?
No, I had a doctor's appointment that day, believe it or not.
Okay. Has Kevin walked you through that yet?
A little bit,
Kevin?
yeah. He's sent me a couple things, but not in any great detail. No.
Okay. Well, I'm going to make sure that I talk to him, that it sits you down and walks you through the full thing. Because if you have a sphere of influence, whatever size it is right now, do you know how big it is? The all-in size?
About 585.
Okay.
Oh, my
So,
all in? No, all in. I think I'm at 319.
okay. So typically we should be able to, and it depends on the market that we're in, but we should be able to close once there's full maturity in all of the marketing that we're doing, which means 18 months, 2 years, where we've just saturated that market. We should be able to close the deal out of about every 15 people that are in that SOI every single year. And so what that means is it's a numbers game. So we have to grow that to get bigger and bigger. But naturally, we cap out at those numbers. And so we have a program where we can basically connect you with agents that aren't producing business. They don't have the ability or the skill that you have, and we partner them with you. And then we help build a silo where you guys are marketing together. You get the vast majority of the business, but Fusion actually fronts all of the marketing money. And so if we could, you're just a really terrific guy, Tim, and if we could build a number of silos around you where you're able to just go in and manage the expert part of the business, connected to people that would be a good fit for you, that's one way of growing it. The other piece, Tim, is once your business gets bigger and bigger, you're going to have to be able to build a team around you that you can count on. And unfortunately, building teams oftentimes means, kissing a few frogs, because, hiring staff and whatnot sometimes. Have you hired staff before? Have you had employees?
No staff. No, not taxable employees. 1099s, independent people. That do my
Yep.
contract to close and stuff like that. And I have a guy that helps me with my inputs here with Fusion and stuff like that.
So one of the things, like the realities are, is how long do you want to do this, Tim?
I don't see myself quitting. I mean, I really like what I do. I mean, I'm 58 now. I'd like to do at least till I'm 70 if I could.
Okay. So the realities are, is you legitimately have the ability to do well over $1 million in GCI and maybe even $1 million in profit. Two pieces to this. We have to grow SOI, true SOI. We have to keep the consistency, but then you're going to need to be able to leverage because you're one person. You cannot do everything yourself. So you have to be able to hand off some of those interactions, not the important parts, not the getting the contract signed, not the listing presentations, not the negotiations, but we have to hand off portions of those processes so that you can have more clients. Because you're a rainmaker, you are an elite person in the business. You have the ability to make rain. And what happens for most people is they do it for a while and then they get complacent, which certainly was me and was you previously, if I understand it correctly, because you got bored and you would move from job to job. That was me. And I got to the point where I was like, I'm so flaky because I keep changing jobs. And it was because I was bored. And not until I started Fusion was I able to stay in one position, because as we grow the company, the amount of problems that I have to solve get bigger and more complex, which keeps me interested. And I have a feeling that's kind of the same. You have a little bit of that same personality, maybe. And so as we grow that business, you will have new challenges that will keep you interested. And I think that's your biggest challenge, recognizing someone that's similar to me in the future. We have to make sure that you don't get bored. Because I got to a point that I felt like if I went on a listing presentation, I was going to get it. Like I was very good at the kitchen table. If I was in front of a buyer, I mean, not all the time, but it didn't feel like a challenge to me. And so when I moved in this role of trying to figure out, okay, how do I move from being the person who's actually generating the business to actually building an organization that could survive without me? And I do feel like at this point, if I had an unfortunate occurrence where I couldn't work or was passed away or something, that I have a team and a staff that this organization could continue definitely without me. And that was the goal. And it's not so much about making more money, it's about the impact that you can potentially have on the world around you. And that's one of the things in your due north, that you definitely want to have a legacy and you want to have impact in the world, which I think is great. So I want to really encourage you to look at the Business Development Associate program. Focus on building, like you're already going deep with what you've got and you're nailing it, but we want to increase that number of true SOI. And then as that's growing, we have to realize that you can't do everything. There are going to be days that you're going to want to go on vacation. There may be some days that you're sick, and you're going to need someone who could step in and take care of you. And so we move from, this is my viewpoint, you can tell me what you think about what I'm saying. Conceptually, we want to move somebody from this thing where we're just exchanging labor for a commission, and a new client just means all that much more work, versus now that client, those new clients come in, they're still work, but they're less work and more profit, so that you can bring in more clients and have more impact with more people. What goes through your mind when I say those types of things?
It says to me that you're focusing a lot on the macro and less on the micro, and you're building economic engines.
How does it relate to you though? For you, if you switching it around and saying, okay, how big do you want your business to be?
I don't know. I want it to grow. I was at that glass ceiling, right? And then I came on with Fusion, and I broke through that glass ceiling. And I want to continue to grow because I've seen the potential in it. I mean, um,
Truly,
that's the
it's truly
struggle.
unlimited.
That is the struggle that I have had, and you're absolutely nailed it. Is to truly grow my true SOI because I'm very cognizant of the difference between a database and an SOI. So I have struggled with that. That is really my big issue. And my PE, Kevin, is so amazing at guiding me through that, really encouraging me to move forward. But I don't know if I have a mental block. I just don't know the roadmap to success with that. But yeah, this is anything I can do to get more relationships because I thrive on that. I'm a pretty outgoing person, and I like to chat with folks, and I hit it off real well. And it truly is how you make people feel that they remember. It's not as much as what you do, but So I like that. I
So
like that.
I think the business development associate program would be really good for you because I think there's so many people that are not rainmakers who have their own sphere of influence that could partner up with you, and they could draft off of your likability, your lovability, your safe zone, your ability to. I mean, it's very clear that you care about people, Tim. Like this comes across just instantaneously. You have been really terrific for Fusion because you've been really complimentary and you've posted about it, and there's nothing in it for you to do that. You're just a generous person. And one of the struggles we have in our business is we have agents. Oh, I want Fusion to grow my business, but I can't tell anybody about Fusion because I don't want my competitors to know about Fusion. Which
There's enough for everybody out there. There's enough.
There's
for
enough.
everybody,
There's enough for everybody.
And
But
the
you're
people in my
natural.
tree.
But you're naturally a generous person. You have that viewpoint of abundance, and that's very attractive. To be people want to be around people that have that mindset versus being around people that are focused on scarcity. And so,
James, on that topic, I've always felt like it's each one teach one. I've had some really incredible people in my path that have really taken a lot of time to share their wisdom and help me out a lot. And I'm not saying I'm all that in a bucket of chicken, but I do what I do, and I like doing what I do. And I think the people I serve really like how I do it. So
yeah.
any chance I can to really preach it from the mountains, man. It's like when you find something that you really love, you want to tell everybody about it, don't you?
Yep.
So it's no different.
Well, I want to really encourage you, and I'll make sure that I talk with Kevin to get you into the details of the business development associate. You're just the right kind of guy for it. It's a big investment for Fusion, and so we want to make sure that we're selecting the right people to do it. But I think
that's a proven track record with us.
Yeah. So, is there anything that you'd like to end the conversation with, Tim?
I got to be honest with you. Now that I've had a great year, my best year in my 20 years, I've had spike years in the past, and I think anybody that's been in this long term. So I'm cautiously optimistic about what this second year is going to bring with us. Everything that I see just points to continued growth. And it's like if I stay in my lane and you stay in your lane and we work together really well, I don't see where it's going to end. And I think I just would like to wrap it up with that. I'm looking forward to seeing what this year is. My goal this year was to hit 11 million. I did 11.7. I gave up a transaction with the toxic buyer, and otherwise I would have had about closer to 13 this year. But you don't want to work with everybody, especially the toxic people. Yep. So my goal for this year is 15 million. I spoke it out loud. You've got it on recording. So let's see if we can't get there.
Yep. I think, one of the things is if you know that you're doing the right thing, it's kind of like one of my heroes is Warren Buffett, because he picks good companies and then he sits on those companies. And when the stock goes up, he doesn't get too excited. And when it goes down, he doesn't get too excited because he knows there's going to be these ups and downs. But over the long haul, they're going to go up and go to the right. And so we just have to make sure that we take a long-term perspective on everything that we're doing and continue to focus on the inputs. What we don't have control over is the end result. We have control over the inputs, and there's correlation with the inputs with the outputs. But sometimes they don't always come on our time frame, but they always come if you keep doing it. Tim, this has been just an absolute enjoyable conversation for me. I can see why my staff loves you so much. You're a terrific person. You're a terrific agent and just a good person. Obviously, that's clear. You've been married for
36 years.
36 years.
As my
That's
dad
amazing.
my dad, James, is be 101 years old in February. And he
Amazing.
tells me all the time, marriage is a wonderful institution, that he was institutionalized for 53 years.
That's funny.
And plus,
Tim,
I need
thank
to
you.
make money. You're welcome, James. Thanks a lot. I really
Yep.
appreciate it.